We're fortunate this morning to have as our commencement speaker, Geoff Duncan, a Georgia Tech alumnus who was elected as Georgia's 12th Lieutenant Governor in November of 2018. Lieutenant Governor Duncan is a former professional baseball player and successful entrepreneur. He graduated from Chattahoochee High School in Alpharetta, where he met his future wife, Brooke. Geoff and Brooke both attended Georgia Tech, where Geoff was a pitcher on the baseball team for the Yellow Jackets. And after a successful career at Georgia Tech, he was drafted by the Florida Marlins organization, where he spent 6 seasons playing minor league baseball, advancing as high as AAA, one step below Major League Baseball, before a shoulder injury forced his retirement in the early 2000s. After his retirement from baseball, Geoff and Brooke started a small marketing firm in their living room. The company experienced tremendous success, which allowed them to sell the business and move to other entrepreneurial ventures. He most recently served as the CEO of a health technology startup. Geoff's faith inspired him to a life of leadership and prompted him to run for political office. In 2012, he was elected to the Georgia House of Representatives, where during his time in office, he authored several important pieces of legislation. These included House Bill 749, the Cargo Theft Act, House Bill 152, Michael's Law, and most recently, SB 258, the Rural Hospital Tax Credit. Geoff and Brooke have 3 sons, Parker, Baylor, and Ryder, and he's coached youth sports for 23 years and leads a weekly Bible study with Brooke. The Duncans attend Browns Bridge Community Church, an affiliate of North Point Community Church. Lieutenant Governor Duncan was right here in McCamish Pavilion on January 14th when he was inaugurated Lieutenant Governor, and we're honored to have him back. Please join me in welcoming Lieutenant Governor Geoff Duncan.
Thank you so much, President Peterson, and thank you for the legacy that you have built and the legacy that you have allowed us to continue to achieve. Thank you so much. To the Executive Vice Presidents, members of the President's Cabinet, especially including my friend Dean Sheehan, deans, faculty, alumni, friends, parents, and spouses, including my bride, Brooke, who's joined us here today. Thank you so much. I want everyone to know that if you don't hear anything else in this speech, know that this is truly an honor for me, and it is something that is extremely special. And the preparation to do this has been an absolute pleasure for myself to be a part of. All right, let's get started. Good morning, Georgia Tech graduates. Good morning, Georgia Tech graduates. Let's hear you. There you go. In full disclosure, this is only the 2nd Georgia Tech graduation ceremony that I've ever been a part of. My wife graduated from Georgia Tech in 1997 cum laude, and we talk about her degree often. It comes up virtually every single day in our house and all around the state. That degree's allowed us to do a lot of amazing things as a family. But here's how that degree typically comes up. Geoff, you went to Georgia Tech. What year did you graduate? And that's when I say, well, I'm still working on that. But my wife graduated from Georgia Tech cum laude, and I start to talk about all of her accolades. My story's got a couple of asterisk marks to it. I came here to play baseball in 1993, and in 1996, I got drafted by the Florida Marlins and signed my first professional contract. With that being said, I've also invited my mom and dad to be here with me today. And Mom, Dad, I apologize it's taken 23 years to get to a graduation ceremony that I was a part of. I know this wasn't what you exactly had in mind, but hopefully you can cut me some slack. It's hard for me to believe 23 years has passed since I was here taking classes. A lot hasn't changed. As I've traveled around the campus, my freshman dorms, Woodruff, are still here. The 8th Street apartments are still here, and the Skiles building actually looks better now than it did when I was here. But a bit has changed since I was here 23 years ago. This whole internet thing has seemed to work out pretty well. emails are officially a thing, and cell phones absolutely rule the world. But other than that, everything else is virtually the same. The fact that I'm standing here today giving this commencement address in front of an arena full of absolutely the best and brightest from around the world can be translated in virtually every language, every religion, every culture as nothing short of a miracle. I would venture to guess that not a single person on this campus, when I was going to school here, not a single person on campus, including me, would have believed that on May 4th, 2019, I would be standing here with a microphone in front of my face. In fact, my roommates, if they were here, would have been talking about some story about blind squirrels finding a nut. Everyone in this arena has a unique story to tell, a story that explains where you've been and where you're going, a story that only you can truly tell and only a story that you can truly understand. And the older and more mature that I've gotten, I realize that if I want to achieve my full potential, I've got to be willing to share my story with those around me and not just the highlights. And if you're anything like me, that's not very easy to do every single day. See, on the surface, my life looks like all unicorns and rainbows, and with a few keystrokes and hashtags, I can make everything look like it comes perfectly natural. I met my wife 22 years ago in high school. I got to play baseball on a scholarship here at one of the greatest schools in this country. I got to go to the College World Series. I got drafted by the Florida Marlins. I started a successful business. I sold it. I've got 3 great kids. And at the ripe young age of 43, I stood just a few feet from here a few months ago and got sworn in as Georgia's 12th lieutenant governor. There's enough good stuff in my life that if I just get up and with minimal effort rotate and recycle my life story every day, it looks like it all comes really easy. And if I'm being honest, I did a really good job of rotating and recycling over the first part of my life. But then something happened a few years ago to me that caused my entire approach to sharing my life story to change. And thankfully, this wasn't the result of some sort of tragic family event or a nasty divorce or a bankruptcy or at the end of an expensive therapy session. It happened at an intersection in my life between a strengthening faith, a healthy dose of maturity, and an unquenchable thirst to be part of something much bigger than myself. Standing at that intersection, I realized that up until that point, I was only comfortable sharing my accomplishments and telling the world about my accomplishments, but not about my struggles getting there. See, I've been an underdog my entire life, and I was embarrassed to admit it to anybody in my life, even those closest to me, my parents, my wife, my teammates, my business partners, my coworkers. Because let's be honest, it is a blast to root for the underdog, but it stinks actually being the underdog. I went through the first 35 years of my life never admitting, not one single time to my recollection, that I was the underdog. I moved 9 times and lived in 7 states before I was 17 years old because of my dad's job. I never found myself at the lunchroom table telling anybody that story. I never wanted anyone to know that I was the absolute last person on the Georgia Tech baseball team to get a scholarship my senior year in high school. I never wanted anyone to know that I struggled academically every single day I was here. I later diagnosed that as a little bit of lazyitis. I never wanted anyone to know that I got drafted in the 69th round of the Major League Draft, and if you know anything about baseball, they don't even have 69 rounds anymore. I got $1,000 and a bus ticket to Utica, New York. I certainly never wanted anybody to know that I had to beg a bank to give me a home equity line to start my first business. I thought when I got into politics, the whole underdog story would subside. Instead, it intensified. I woke up one day, a year and a half ago, to see a headline about this big in the front of the paper. They called me, guess what? The underdog. If you can keep a secret, I'd like to tell you something. I absolutely hate being the underdog, but for some reason, I seem to be good at it. My instincts tell me that many of you in this room here today are really good at being the underdog. See, I always thought, much like others, that if you're the underdog, you can't win. You can't come in first place. You can't be successful. That's not the case. It just means you've got to outwork, outsmart, outlast the competition. I now realize that every single room I walk into in this role as Lieutenant Governor, I get to share with people and encourage them about being the underdog. See, there's only one smartest person in every room. There's only one strongest person in every room. There's only one fastest person in every room. And there's only one wealthiest person in every room. The rest of us, are just underdogs, whether we want to admit it or not. Once I started to accept the fact that I wasn't going to really be the best at anything, that's when I started to let life become a whole lot more enjoyable. I started to enjoy my family. I started to enjoy my career. I started to enjoy my faith. And I started to enjoy chasing crazy dreams like running for lieutenant governor against all odds. So here's my big takeaway. I encourage you to make every part of your life about the journey and not the trophy. My life experiences tell me that when I focus on the journey and not the trophy, that my successes seem to just mean so much more to me, and my failures seem to be so much more instructive. When you make life about the journey and not the trophy, I can assure you that those around you will recognize and notice that outward style of living. Those that you work with will trust you more and be more productive around you. Your spouse and kids will respect you more and love you more. And last but not least, you will notice, because every single day will seem to matter, not just the days that you win a trophy. If you're anything like me, when you start paying attention to the journey and not just the trophy, you'll start to pick up some very impactful life lessons along the way. And here's a couple that I've picked up in my life. I never seem to regret giving somebody a compliment. I never seem to regret canceling a business meeting so I can spend more time with my family. It is shockingly unforgettable how good I feel inside after I help someone in need, especially when it's not convenient. I now recognize how much easier my life would have been if I would have just walked into that church instead of drive by it for 10 straight years. I now realize that no matter how much I worry about a difficult situation, it doesn't change the outcome. You're gonna have to trust me on this one. I've realized that being wealthy has very little to nothing to do about money. And it seems like the most effective times in my life have been the most humbling times in my life. And last but not least, I now know that being the underdog is actually my greatest asset and not my greatest liability. It's amazing how much cumulative and individual potential is sitting here in this arena today. Potential that will help the next generation communicate all over the universe. Potential that will come up with some of the greatest innovations of this century. Potential that will help shape entire industries around the globe. Potential that will no doubt solve some of the most complex riddles of our time. In closing, being a Georgia Tech graduate doesn't mean you're not going to be an underdog. It just means you're going to be the smartest underdog. Together we swarm, and God bless this group. Thank you.